Nadeem Aslam, British Pakistani author. How are you finding the festival,
I
Nadeem?
love it here. It's absolutely beautiful. I think it was Gore Vidal who said that some of the greatest literature of the 20th century came out of societies which were small and contained, had very strong family ties, and then what happened when these societies met modernity. And he was talking about the American South and Ireland, of course. And so, for those of us who are writers, Ireland is really a place of pilgrimage, from Yeats to Beckett to Joyce, and even when someone mentions something like the River Shannon, you just get a shiver because these names are so evocative. County Cork and all of this. And so coming here has been thrilling, and the festival is small and intimate because some festivals you go to, they are very huge and there is no sense of any intimacy. But this has been lovely.
Fantastic. And I know from reading some of your stuff, you actually do a lot of research yourself into everything you do. Like for when you had one character in one of your books that was blind, and you actually taped your own eyes shut for 3 weeks.
Yes, I did that.
You're a bit of a method author, are you?
No, I mean, it's a very good question, but the thing is that I had no information about. So I wanted to write about a person who was blind, and so the first thing was to read about it, and I couldn't find any good books which told me what it was to be like blindness. Basic questions like: is blindness white? Is blindness red? Is blindness golden? Is it silver? So I decided to go and talk to people who are visually impaired and who are blind, but I don't have the kind of temperament which means that I meet someone and within an hour I can begin to ask them really personal questions. So a year went by and I had no information about that I needed. So in the end I thought I have to do it myself. So I taped shut my eyes for a week. And the book took 4.5 years to write, so I had 3 more years to go. So I did it again the following year, and I did it again the following year. And it's simply not. It's not a case of that. I would have done it if I'd had enough good information from someone. But it's just a case that I never could acquire the information.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in the novel. The hero, the main character, Mikal, he's captured by he's captured before he's captured by the Americans who think he's a terrorist, and he's interrogated like in those black sites, like Bagram in Afghanistan. Before that happens, he's captured by an Afghanistani warlord who, in order to teach him a lesson, cut off his trigger finger. So I wanted to know, just purely in order to write that character well, can he smoke without that finger? Can he eat properly? What can he do and what can't he do? Now you tell me, who could I have asked? There is no one who I could have asked. So I just taped this finger down and that one, and I lived like that. No, I lived like that for a few hours to see what can I do and what can't I do. Can I comb my hair like this? Can I eat like this? So
did you find it limiting?
Yes. In the end, there is discomfort, but he could eat. Yes.
Fantastic.
So it was just a symbolic act on the part of the warlord who cut off his because.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Do you want to tell us a bit about about some more of your work?
Yes. The Blind Man's Garden, my new novel, is it takes place in Pakistan, and it begins a few weeks after the 9/11 attacks, and we have 2 young men. They're 20 years old, and they cross into Afghanistan because one of them is a medical student, and he wants to go to the war zone and help tend to the wounded who are the wounds that are being caused in the battle. And there something terrible happens, and then the novel actually charts the story of the remaining brother as he makes his way back to the novel, and he's in love with someone. This girl, 19-year-old woman, and she's waiting for him. So I keep cutting from him journeying back to her and her waiting, and in the end, towards the end of the novel, 3/4 of the way through the novel, they meet, and she utters what for me is the key sentence of the novel. She says, "I haven't seen you for 479 days. I feel as though I have been in 479 wars."
Oh.
So I wanted to convey that fine men go out and engage with history head on, as it were.
Yeah.
But what happens to women when they stay at home during the time of stress, during the time of war, is also equally harrowing, and what have you. And they are very young, both of these people. I wrote my first novel when I was 22, 23, which is 25 years ago now. And it's amazing to me that at that time I wrote a novel in which all the main characters are in their 60s and 70s. So when I wrote my second novel, which was published when I was 30 plus, again everyone in that novel is older. It's only now that I'm an older man myself do I feel equipped to write about young characters, because I think in this world we underestimate the grief of the young.
Yeah.
In that here we have these new lives, these young people who for 16, 17, 18 years are given love, compassion if they are lucky, etc., are given a set of values, and then they go out into the world and the world says to them, corruption is possible, lies are possible. Not only that, if you're corrupt, sometimes you will be rewarded. So there is that confusion which then results in a young person's life, in that, do I do the right thing? Do I hold on to what I was taught earlier? Do I do the noble thing and the ideal thing, or do I become corrupt? That tension is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
So this is what happens in this novel, that these are very young people who are thrown into the fire, and again they are told, if you lie and cheat, there is a way out of it. And every time they say, no, I will do that a heroic life is possible.
Yeah.
And not only that, a heroic death is possible.
Okay, good. Sounds like it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. You wrote your first novel 8 years after you taught yourself to write
That's right.
in English.
That's right.
How did you go about that?
Well, I came to Britain when I was 14, and when I came here, when I came to Britain, I had no English. So because I had gone to an Urdu medium school in Pakistan. So when I came to Britain, I went to school, and the subjects I did well in school were sciences, because for sciences your English needn't be that good.
Yeah.
All you need to do is assimilate facts and reproduce them. If they happen to be in clumsy English, it doesn't really matter. So I did well in sciences, but the subjects I was interested in, which were literature, history, politics, anthropology, sociology, for that you needed to write essays, you needed to compose arguments, you needed to critique things, and I couldn't even write a paragraph. So I went to university to read sciences, but in my third year, by which time, as you say, I had been in Britain for 7 or 8 years, I realized that my English was good enough to do what I really wanted to do, which was to become a writer. So I dropped out, began writing my novel, and which took 11 months to write. And once it was accepted for publication, and which again is an interesting story, that I didn't know how to get a book published. But the writers I loved were Cormac McCarthy, Gore Vidal, V.S. Naipaul, John Updike, Timothy Moore, and they were published in London by a firm called Andre Deutsch. So I picked up a copy of V.S. Naipaul's A Bend in the River, looked at the copyright page, got the address, and I sent them the manuscript. And 10 days later I got a phone call saying, can we speak to Nadeem Aslam, please? And I said, well, yes. And they said, we have your novel, and come and have lunch with us. So they decided to publish me. And after that, I said that because I couldn't do my O-levels in the subjects I was interested in, because I couldn't do my A levels, my BA, my MA, my PhD in the subjects I was interested in. Now, over the next decade or so, I'm going to do those myself. So I would go to one person and say, "Tell me who is a great writer," and they will say, "William Faulkner." So I would go and read everything by Faulkner. I would go to person B and say, "Tell me who's a great writer," and they would say Samuel Beckett. I would go and read everything by Samuel Beckett. So I would write everything by Thomas Hardy, everything by Conrad, everything by Joyce. And so that is how slowly over that decade, and also I wanted to be slightly more intimate with the prose of certain writers. I wanted to know how they use a comma, how they use the full stop, how many ideas can you have per page, how many images can you have per page. So I copied out the whole of Moby Dick by hand.
Oh my God.
I copied out the whole of As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. I copied out the whole of The Street of Crocodiles by Bruno Schulz. I copied out Beloved by Toni Morrison. And I still have those manuscripts. I copied out them all by hand because I wanted to see, as I said, what is the rhythm of that prose. Why did this writer choose to write a comma here instead of a full stop, a semicolon? So, and that, because it slows you down, because you read faster than you write.
Yeah.
So it slowed me down and it made me more intimate with the text. So that is how I learned English.
That's dedication. Seriously, would you say, for if you were giving advice to young people starting out, or even young people like yourself when you started out, that it's just hard work?
Well, anything worth doing is worth doing well. So, I mean, writing is my life. This is what I do. I get up in the morning and I'm in my study for 9 or 10 hours.
Okay.
You know, so, but we mustn't romanticize it too much. My sister gets up in the morning and she has to go to work.
Yeah.
Whether or not she's in the mood or not, because she works in a bank, she has to be at her desk at 9 o'clock. And at 5:30 she leaves.
Yeah.
So there is that enormous span of time where she is required to work. So in one sense, that is what a writer is like, which is not to say that we are constantly as productive as as people who go out to work, in that I can spend 2 hours just thinking about a problem. You know, so somebody looking at me could think, actually, this guy is just sitting in that chair not doing anything. Well, actually, I am actually very actively working very hard. So, so yes, there might not be a product at the end of the day. And this is why, I mean, literary festivals like these are important. And perhaps this is where we should end, because that's how we should begin. That's where we began, in that people who go out to work and if at their work they do well or they make a mistake that day, by the end of that day they will know, their boss will let them know that you've done well or you made a mistake. By the end of that day, by the end of that week, at least by the end of that month, some feedback will happen.
Yeah.
But with writers, this is, as I said, central thing in my life, and this is a central thing in any artist's life, what they do. At the end of the day, there is no feedback from anyone about what I've done. A week goes by, a month goes by, a year goes by, 4.5 years go by, and no one has said anything to me about what I have been doing. Only when the book is published, and then you come to a festival like this, and you meet readers who say to them, and frankly, when I'm writing a book, because there is no feedback, you begin to think I don't exist. Because this is what you do, this is what you're giving 110% to every day, and yet there is no reaction to it from the rest of the world. But when you come here, and sometimes when a reader comes up to me and they mention a character, my response really is sometimes that my breath is taken away. I think they can see me. I exist. That what I was doing for the past 4.5 years, it actually now is having a reaction. So it's lovely coming here.